Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast. It's the essential podcast that keeps you a step ahead of the latest threats in cybersecurity. How long we've been running now, guys? Like 4
years.
How long?
4 years, right?
4.5. I think we're going on now.
Wow. Oh yeah. We're already in June. Yeah,
it's already June. I mean, it's crazy to me that the year is half gone already. I mean, it's just. These years just keep getting quicker and quicker. I mean, it's just crazy. It feels like the year just turned over, and here we are halfway through the calendar year, halfway through the business year. So wild.
Yeah, hurricane season coming to Miami.
Yeah, right. So if you don't know, I'm your host Bryan here with Exact IT, and I have with me Randy from Tech Rescue down in Texas, and Andre from Arc Solvers in Miami. And today's show is stacked with hard-hitting cybersecurity stories that are in the news that cut across America's digital vulnerabilities. As we talk about all the time on this show, from small towns, municipalities, healthcare, global retailers, no one's off limits when it comes to ransomware and cyber crime. And boy, we got a list of companies and organizations that have hit the news in the last 7 days. It's going to be hard to get it all in a half-hour, 45-minute show, but we're going to try. So we've confirmed cyber attacks, crippling operations in cities of Lorain County, Ohio, Durant, Oklahoma. We're also diving into disturbing disruptions in the healthcare world, from Covenant Health in New England and a follow-up on the Kettering Health in Ohio cyber attacks. Patient safety is now being compromised by these digital threats. And just when you thought you heard it all, we'll unpack the disturbing evolution of the new thing called triple extortion ransomware, a tactic that's rewriting the rules of cyber extortion. Stay tuned for an update on that. Alongside me today, as always, Randy and Andre. Here we go. Break it down. Let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen here as we talk about this attack on Lorain County. Where are we at here? All courts. That's the one we want. Yep. Boom. Lorain County, Ohio. And what happens, guys, when a county government grinds to a halt during a ransomware attack? We seem to be talking about that a hell of a lot lately here on the show. Recent cities. We're going to talk about Durant today. We had Abilene, Texas recently. We talked about a couple governments last week. I don't remember exactly which one, some counties. And now we have Lorain County in Ohio dealing with that this is coming off Memorial Day weekend. And we said that, last show, like, let's see what we talk about next week, because that's going to be the aftermath of Memorial Day weekend. And there's a lot out there. Critical systems across the country were hit, Lorain County being one of them, leaving their operations disrupted, raising critical, urgent questions about why local governments are not really prepared or cyber ready. Officials are still assessing the full impact. The attack has spotlighted just how vulnerable municipal infrastructure is, especially those lacking modern cybersecurity investments. With these services interrupted, guys, and pressures mounting, Lorain County is now racing against the clock to recover, reassure residents, and secure its networks from future attacks. So what is going on with local governments that's making them so appealing for these ransomware criminals?
Well, it's usually all about the money. It's always about the information that they have and putting the pressure on them to say, hey, if you don't pay up, we are going to either publicly, we're going to disclose this information. We're going to, tell people about this information, and we're going to keep you from not working. So, and, something like courts, we all know that if a delay in court can have a trickle-down effect, so they definitely need to be working very fast.
Yeah, so having to be
all
up and working,
departments are open, but they just don't have computer systems. So it sounds like they're limping along. So we don't really know the impact, right?
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, so I was just saying when they have to be up and running, that puts it puts pressure. And so that's why that you asked why they're such a good target. Well, they have data, and they have critical services which have to be running. So they're more likely to pay a ransom or do whatever the bad guys want them to do so the bad guys can extort the money. And then also their data is very useful out on the dark web for the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, and then I think it's also because, again, their cyber defenses just absolutely suck, right? And as we're going to cover in a following up segment with Abilene, Texas, we're going to talk about, like, when do companies actually get it through their thick heads that they actually need to spend money on this stuff, and more money than they're probably spending today. So we'll dive into that when we talk about Abilene, Texas. But we have another city under the crosshairs of cyber criminals and in the midst of probably some kind of a negotiation, as Sheboygan, Wisconsin, a nearly 70,000 resident town in Wisconsin, was blindsided by a ransomware attack that resulted in a serious data breach. More shocking than the breach itself is the timeline. Residents weren't notified for months. The stolen data included everything from social security numbers to driver's license information. Now questions are swirling. Why the delay, and what consequences might the city face for this lapse in transparency? This event and case is a stark reminder that ransomware incidents, how you respond, can be just as important as how you were breached. And we've seen this a million times play out at this point in the world, right? With these class action lawsuits that are just devastating to organizations who don't get the response piece right and don't do things in a timely manner. So why is prompt notification essential in these ransomware attacks that involve stolen sensitive data, guys? What's at risk here?
Well, I mean, so everybody's going to have a breach. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And so when you have a breach, I would say, obviously, contact your lawyers, come up with the right stuff to say. But that's the thing. You have a breach. If you say the right things, if you have handled it the correct way, if you did the correct things before, you do the correct things after, then you're less likely to have a lawsuit. But if you screw any of those up, you're probably going to get a lawsuit.
Yeah, and before all of this, you have to have a plan. And the fact that it took them 6 months to come out and tell the public, and even in this case, they were telling the public, no, nothing to see here. But then the bad guys were showing proof that they had the data. So the fact that it took 6 months tells me that they didn't even know what was taken. And they had to go through the process of trying to figure out, okay, what did the bad guys actually get? And now here's the information.
Yes, sir. So what would you guys what would be your advice that you would give an organization? What advice would you tell them to follow to minimize that the trust damage that can come from these incidents? Like, what would you say the number one thing is that you would say, like, if you're going to do this one thing in a response, this is what it should be?
I'd say transparency. Just be transparent. Obviously, run it through your lawyer so you don't say the wrong thing, but be transparent and keep people up to date. I mean, that's not really one thing. If I had to say one thing, I'd just say transparent.
Cool.
And I would say have the ability to know if data was accessed, who accessed it, what time, so that later on, if you do have this situation, you can, going back to transparency, you can quickly tell people, hey, we had this folder and it had your sensitive information, and we have what they call logs showing that this was accessed or this got uploaded to who knows where.
Yeah, I think above and beyond transparency for me is just, just make sure that when you say certain things, like, no information was accessed, or something like that, that you're accurate in that release and that you're not saying things just because you want to minimize. Because that is a pattern we see that I disagree with, is companies that do come out too early and say, we don't believe any personal information or sensitive information was accessed, like pretty much the day after, and they really have no idea. They didn't have good enough cybersecurity defenses and telemetry to stop it. So if they couldn't stop it, they probably have no idea if something was accessed or stolen in the first place. So it takes time to figure that out. And we've seen it too many times where organizations have come out and said nothing was stolen. And, as Andre always likes to point out, on that Friday before a holiday, 4:00, a press release goes out saying, oh, by the way, a million people's information was stolen as a result of that attack. So just, don't release information that you're not sure about until you're 100% sure about it, I think is kind of the moral of the story there. And then let's move on to this kind of an inconspicuous Facebook post that Randy sniffed out here on the cyber webs, where we have the City of Durant, Oklahoma, and they've just gone public on their Facebook, and we'll talk about why we're finding this on Facebook, and this is really the only place you're going to find this. But the City of Durant in Oklahoma gone public with a breach that officials are calling a cyber incident, language we've all come to associate with ransomware. City services were disrupted, internal systems were compromised, and now they're coordinating with cybersecurity experts to investigate and contain the fallout. This attack may not be as high profile as some others, but it's a powerful example of how smaller municipalities are increasingly under siege by threat actors, exploiting weak points in public infrastructure, as we've pointed out so far. 12 minutes into the show, that's basically all we've talked about. What's going on here? Why Facebook? And what can Durant do to immediately mitigate further impacts to this event?
Randy, you want I can go, but this was yours.
It's all you, Randy. This is your story.
Yeah, I know. I went first on the last couple ones, but so basically their website is down, and that's why they're having to go to Facebook. It appears the website won't load, durant.org. So, yeah. What was your question?
Just why Facebook was the one, and the other one is what's something Durant can do here to mitigate further impacts. I mean, come on, you're a city. I like to put myself in the shoes of a resident of that town, right? Like, you can't access your town's website. I got to imagine that's causing some concern among the residents of Durant, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, if I'm a vendor or contractor, I'm going to be worried, because if they're down right now and my checks or, however they pay me isn't coming, that's going to be a business continuity issue on my side, because now I have to, maybe they owe me 30 grand and I'm trying to pay my guys this Friday, and now the city systems are down. I can't call and get an update because obviously their situation is taking precedent. And another thing here in the article that it looked at is talking about credit card payment systems are still being investigated. So for me, that's a little red flag, because if they're now saying something with the credit cards that I used to pay for city services, are you how does it, because usually your credit card process, the system is a third party. So are now you trying to say something
lots of things come from this, right? So
yeah.
One of the things that I hear from all the time when these towns get hit like this is from people who, build real estate, build homes,
Yep.
Office building, commercial, because they can't get things done. They can't get things approved with permitting. You finish a project. A lot of times these developers have things called bonds, and those bonds don't get released. And that's a lot of money that can be held up. And even for 2 or 3 weeks, that's cash flow. A lot of times these companies operate on hey, that project's going to be done in 2 weeks. We're going to get that cash flow when we get that bond money back. and then you can't get these things released just because the organization can't operate. So it's a problem. So I think real estate's one of the first ones that really feels the impact of when governments go down. And like you said, Andre, these payment systems, people might have their sewer bill, their taxes on like auto pay. Like, here, have my credit card on file and just debit me when it's time to pay, because I don't ever want to have to deal with, a late sewer or water bill or a late tax bill. So I just pay it automatically. A lot of people do that. And if the system is down, what we've seen is these systems like don't communicate, right? So the payment system is down and can't run, and the other system over here is expecting to see some kind of a debit or credit against the account, and it doesn't happen. And now that account's flagged, and now that automation gets set off, and this person's now getting late notices that you didn't pay your water bill or you didn't pay your taxes. And it creates this whole level of anxiety and mistrust as a result of these things. And these are real things that happen to real people when these municipalities get hit.
Right. And then I don't know if it's related, but just the fact that they brought the website down as well, it could be that they host it on a server in their, data center or offices or whatever they have. And so maybe they just nabbed it. But it also could be hosted somewhere else. And, they just brought it down as a psyop because literally what you're saying about people getting angsty and, what Andre was saying about, I'm a vendor, I'm not getting paid or whatever, then you add to the fact that the website's it's nothing. It's just spinning. Like, they're not even redirecting it somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, they have a registrar, where they can like point it somewhere else.
But that would be that would require an incident response plan, right? And practicing it and going, hey, okay, like, what do we do with our website if it's down and not accessible? Do we have a backup for that? Or do we have some redundancy? Do we have somewhere else we can send them? This is what happens, right? And Randy, get me going, right? Because I talked to you in the green room about the douchebag who showed up on my Facebook channel and, basically, slandered my company over something that we knew was accurate, right? And this is the stuff that we can look at from the outside and go, oops, they didn't really have their shit together when it came to an incident response plan because they didn't have this fully baked out and thought out. So it's things like this that we can look at, little pieces that we can say, oh, that shouldn't happen, that shouldn't happen. That gives us a pretty good picture on the maturity of somebody's incident response capabilities, so to speak, right? So we don't necessarily need the organization to come out and tell us word for word, like, hey, we didn't really have an incident response plan. We can just look at what's going on, and with enough information, we can say, they weren't really prepared for this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the difference, I guess, between being an expert and somebody who doesn't really understand this stuff. But, that's the reality. We can look at these things, we can look at news articles, and we can go, whew, man, they really missed the mark, or they really didn't take this seriously. So anything else there, guys, before we switch gears here to non-municipal cyber attack?
The fact that they're on a Facebook page, there's brutal comments that are already there. And they're
let's go.
Not replying yet on Facebook.
Wait, there's comments? I love comments. I only come for wait, look at Andre's there. Andre,
you guys. It's you. While you were talking.
You guys are causing problems.
No, but look, click on the main city's website. One thing we didn't talk about was their 911 system. So their 911 system is saying expect longer wait times when calling.
Ouch.
We talked about that a couple of weeks ago on the show when there was a system outage where then all of the city 911 calls went to the county. So where's their response? Like, if the county's 911 system goes, does it go to a city? Does it go to a neighboring town or whatever?
Yep.
Bryan, you're sharing your screen. You're sharing your screen.
I know.
Oh, that's an article. Okay, got it. All right.
You're a clown. So moving right along here, I think we wanted to talk about this last week, but it didn't make the show. I don't remember. Maybe it did. But even the most iconic brands aren't immune to cybercrime, as Victoria's Secret has faced a wave of outages recently that many suspect are tied to a significant cybersecurity incident. The lingerie retailer took down its entire U.S. website, and reports suggest internal IT teams are battling to restore operations. With the company remaining tight-lipped on details, the story highlights the growing trend of consumer-facing giants falling prey to cyber attacks that not only hurt their brand, but interrupt e-commerce and logistics in major ways. So what makes major retailers like Victoria's Secret attractive targets for these cyber attacks? And do we know what's going on here? I mean, it obviously is not a ransomware attack. It seems like maybe a series of denial of service attacks that they just can't get in front of, or what do you think is going on here?
Yeah, I don't think hackers are concerned about the money for this one. I think they're just wanting the pictures, No? All right. Hey, it's funny to somebody. Someone's laughing right now.
I'm laughing because it is funny to some and not funny to others. But yeah, so the website is down, and this is probably how they do a lot of e-commerce. So it's going to hit them hard.
One interesting thing is a 7% drop on their stock because of this. That was interesting. And investors fear that they're not ready and that they are going to lose. I mean, obviously they're more retail. Like, you can go to Victoria's Secret.
Retail is one of the largest.
Yeah.
Retail is one of the most targeted sectors by cyber criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I guess my question is how far down could this potentially go? Like, are we all in the camp of any retailer, little small mom and pops with Etsy stores and Shopify stores can fall to similar, to similar situations as Victoria's Secret, or, is this only a problem that like big retailers like Walmart and, major multi-million-dollar organizations should worry about? Where are your thoughts on this? Because I think this is just a good example of a very large company, but it could happen to a smaller organization as well.
Oh, no, definitely. It's happening to smaller organizations. They're just too small to make the news and for us to talk about it.
Right. And then so this isn't ransomware, right? This is some kind of other thing that's going on. Can somebody kind of break this down and explain this to like your grandmom or a kindergartner as to what these guys are actually doing and why this is causing such a problem to where they just had to shut the website down? Like, what is the issue here?
We don't know 100% if it's extortion or not, but they basically took one of their main tools of making money, disrupted it by getting control of it, and it appears the bad guys are keeping this company from getting into their website and being able to do commerce. The crazy thing is, on things like this, these disruptions, you never know how big they're going to snowball and can cause a company to completely change direction or go out of business.
Yeah, there's two main things as cyber defenders that you're worried about here. Number one, this could be like a false flag. There could be something else that they're doing and using this as a distraction, right? So they could be messing with the website, like doing a denial of service attack, or maybe they figured out some kind of code injection that they can do on the actual website to make it run slower, or do something along the lines to overtax it. And they decided for whatever reason that they need to take this down to address the issue. But what you can see is they got everybody's attention over here dealing with denial of service. Meanwhile, they're inside the network, moving laterally left and right, getting access to every computer while everybody's distracted so they can deploy ransomware. That is absolutely at play here. So these guys have to be fully aware that this could be going on in their network. The other side of this is it could be just as simple as like a denial of service or some kind of situation like that. And anybody with any kind of website could fall victim But cyber criminals are getting better. They're refining their tactics. They're understanding that, a regular business consulting website where they're just maybe have a lead form, really doesn't care if they get DDoS, right? But an e-commerce website where they need that thing to be up to sell product, they're going to care if they get DDoS. Now, most of these organizations have DDoS protection in place, so I'm curious to learn what this actually is. And maybe Victoria's Secret didn't have something like Cloudflare in front of their servers or something like that. And that I say Cloudflare because that's the easiest way to kind of deal with this problem. And most, Fortune 500 organizations, use Cloudflare in some way, shape, or form to deal with these types of problems. But these are things that you have to think about, right? If you have a Shopify store, if you have an Etsy store, if you're not putting Cloudflare in front of your website, you could potentially, fall victim to one of these kind of DDoS schemes like we're seeing here.
And all this talk about Victoria's Secret, and it could be a supply chain. It could be a vendor that they're using to do something on their site, and they're the ones that got compromised. And now all of a sudden they're getting the bad rep, but then it's not even their fault per se.
And there has been a lot of warnings in the past couple of weeks that U.S. retailers were going to start getting hit because there's been a lot of that going on in the UK. Yep. And they've turned the Eye of Sargon or whatever our way, and it looks like it's starting to happen here.
Could be. We will keep you updated as we learn more. There's definitely more to learn here. Very little known, and we'll figure out why they shut down their servers as a result. So MetaClinic, a prominent healthcare provider, guys, is navigating a challenging recovery after being targeted by Everest ransomware. This group significantly disrupted patient care. Although based internationally, the ripple effects of this attack extended globally with serious implications for healthcare cybersecurity across the board. Patient records were compromised. They had to shut down their IT systems, and critical services were delayed as a result of this attack. And this story underscores just how devastating these attacks can be when aimed with an industry tasked with safeguarding lives. So, anything you caught your eye here with this particular event, other than, it's a clinic that a MetaClinic that, according to what we have here, we have 1,000 employees with about 4 gigabytes of confidential internal documents stolen, and Everest is threatening to leak the information. So that's kind of where things are at. Why does this keep happening? Here we go. We're gonna hit on 3 stories in healthcare here, 1, 2, and 3 in this segment of the show. What's going on in the healthcare world?
Well, one interesting thing in this article was talking about how they're giving them a 5-day ransom deadline, or they'll leak the data. And typically we hear about these data. We're talking hundreds of gigabytes or even terabytes. So here we're only talking about 4 gigs, but as you had mentioned, this could have been a well-targeted 4 gigs. Vendor contracts, employee credentials, or anything like that. So although it's only 4 gigs, but if it's like a good, juicy, yummy 4 gigs, then it could be, really devastating.
Yep.
No, it's going to be devastating. I mean, it's employee information. Who else? Who knows what else is in there? But employee information is enough.
And this is a $5 billion annual revenue company, so this is not tiny. It's one of the largest healthcare players in the world. So,
somehow I missed this in the show docs, guys. I'm just going to pull it up before we jump to the next article. But here's it looks like Bangor, Maine, St. Joseph's Hospital confirms it was also hit with a cyber attack. Basically a data security issue that prompted St. Joseph Hospital in Bangor to temporarily turn off its data systems from a cyber attack. And that's all the information I have, other than, I'm paywalled on this article. So, but that's the deal there. So, another healthcare organization on top of the one we just talked about. And then we're going to touch on an update with Kettering Health that we talked about last week. I guess this is related. Maybe I didn't realize it. So this is the other story, Covenant Health here. Possible ransomware attack in Maine and New Hampshire. So this is probably related. This Covenant Health organization got hit with ransomware. So anything you guys want to touch on before we move into this triple ransomware talk, and then we'll touch on the Kettering Health update in our following up segment. Anything from these different healthcare breaches that you guys want to discuss? Are we good to go?
Yeah, I have some thoughts, but it's probably too deep of a dive. So,
all right. So let's move on. We got this story here out of Tech Target called basically short on time. Look at this one. Engage with our AI feature. And it's like taking up half my screen. I don't want that. What is triple extortion ransomware, guys? This new thing that's kind of hit the scene with Tech Target. What they're kind of saying here is if ransomware wasn't already bad enough, cyber criminals have now added a new layer of intimidation, triple extortion. So we know the original extortion started with ransomware, encrypting files and threatening to leak that data is double extortion. And now attackers are directly pressuring employees, clients, and vendors to ensure payment is made. This evolution marks a disturbing new phase in ransomware tactics, and it's one that significantly raises both the stakes and complexity of incident response. Understanding this new threat vector is crucial for any organization looking to stay ahead of the curve. So this whole thing with, I guess they're calling it triple extortion. I've talked about this, and we've talked about this a ton on the show. I mean, we've warned people that they'll call your employees, they'll call your clients, they'll call your family, they'll call whoever they need to call. They're like bill collectors. Like, they want your money, they're coming to get you. They have people's information, and they can get a hold of those people, and they can use pressure to get, pressure on them to get you to pay or make you feel pressure because now these people know about your situation. There's a lot of different psychological tactics that come into play here when it comes to cybercrime, and they know how to use them. So what are your thoughts here, guys? This is, they're calling this a disturbing new phase of ransomware attacks. I don't know if it's necessarily new. It sounds like they decided to put a name to it. And I think this goes a little bit further than just kind of what they talk about in this article. And what I mean by that is it goes a little bit further than just, directly pressuring employees, clients, and vendors. This kind of third leg, we've seen it manifest itself by just, they can do this one of two ways. They can do it surgically by calling these individuals that are part of your organization or you're associated with, or they can just release it all out into the public, right? And that kind of hits everybody, right? And when it hits everybody, we know what happens. Class action lawsuits come. I don't think anything different happens here. I think class action lawsuits will also result as this. This is what happens. Like, people learn, like, oh, my stuff was stolen because this scammer or this guy is calling me and he has all this information about me. And you start to dig in and you learn that this organization was breached and your data was part of it. That's why you're getting these phone calls. And then you learn that, hey, there's a group of people that also were impacted by this. And there's this lawyer over here who's now accepting clients for a class action lawsuit, and boom, now you're part of that class action lawsuit. So this is how this stuff plays out in the real world, guys. And this is what these cyber criminals are banking on, that the word's going to get out that this is a thing, and that if you allow this to happen, you're going to get hit so hard with class action lawsuits that not paying this ransom is going to seem like a really stupid decision.
I think we've been talking about this probably for 3 years easy, Brian, where we've been talking about PSYOPs, secondary PSYOPs to get you to pay the ransom. And we've not seen it happen a ton. And so I think, like you said, this is not necessarily something new, but it looks like something they're leaning into more, where, I mean, we saw this in an attack recently where they tried to reach out to other vendors, same kind of thing. But short story long, anything they can do to put the pressure on you to get you to pay the ransom, to get money from you, they're going to do.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Andre, any thoughts on this before we move on? Thoughts on, is this going to be something that emerges in your mind? We're kind of seeing right now, if you guys can agree or disagree with me, but I kind of think that, like, we're seeing more organizations not pay the ransom than ever before. Right. So, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, will this be a thing that businesses are eventually advised on by breach coaches to say, like, hey, there's this other thing where if this information gets out, you could be looking at millions of dollars in class action lawsuits to the tune of like, $20 million or something like that they project, your class action lawsuit could, put you behind, so to speak. Right. And maybe it's only $1 million ransom. So you're looking at 1 million versus 20. Right. When you have all the information in front of you. Do you think that that's a realistic situation that's going to play out here in the boardrooms in, say, 6-12 months?
Yeah, I think so. And for a moment, as you guys were talking, I was thinking about, I was closing my eyes actually and just thinking, what if my largest client got a phone call from one of these guys saying, hey, ArcSolver's got breached. We have your information, or, whatever that case is, and you need to pay up. Like, think about how I was just thinking how devastating that would be to my business if my largest client got that phone call.
Right. Which will happen. I mean, MSPs, IT companies will get hit and people will get phone calls. I mean, it's going to happen. And we're going to be really hard for an MSP to hide it from their clients, I think. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be an MSP. It could be a payroll company. It could be, anything that a company relies on to get things done, on a weekly or biweekly basis, so to speak, or even daily, right? So think about those vendors, think about how it can impact your business, because that will, that is your third party risk, right? That we talk about all the time. So, all right, guys, let's move right along here. We've covered this new topic of triple extortion ransomware. Now let's get into the following up segment. And this first one is, we touched on this last week, guys. We knew a little bit at the time, but not a whole lot. And we're starting to understand a little bit more about Kettering Health. And Kettering Health is a major Ohio healthcare network, and they are still working to recover from a large-scale ransomware attack that took its systems offline. The attack affected everything from scheduling to diagnostics, with patients and staff facing mounting frustration. Although emergency services remained operational, there were delays and data outages that continued to impact non-emergency medical services. The incident, again, is a wake-up call to a sector that's, we discussed, has been battered by cybercrime. It serves as another case study into why continuity planning and rapid response protocols are no longer optional. They're absolutely mission critical. Randy, you said it earlier. You're going to get hit. Are you going to be ready? And here we go. We didn't know all this last week when we covered it, and now we know a lot more. And it's just clear that these incidents are just devastating to these organizations. They go down and they cannot serve the communities that they're built in. And again, I would imagine that Kettering Health has hospitals in those rural areas of Ohio that don't have many other options close to them.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, one angle I was going to talk about is, the article talked about how the FBI, CISA, they've contacted all the, nice acronyms and so forth like that. But at the end of the day, recovery is still your responsibility and the damage is done.
So we got Randy, you want to talk about anything before we move on to the last article?
Just, something I was thinking about earlier. I see in this industry a lot of devices that are kept off the network, or they're not allowed to be secured because it messes with them, or they're running an old operating system. we really got to catch this industry up to speed and get them where they're cyber secure, because this is crazy. It seems like it's happening full speed right now, that they're hitting healthcare over and over and over and over.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Healthcare, municipalities, schools, very much in the crosshairs. Not so much as retail and maybe other, or retail not so much as these areas, but I mean, it's pretty much every day where we're seeing, Abilene, cities. We're going to do a follow up here on Abilene. We're seeing cities and hospitals just left and right fall victims. I mean, if you just do a Google search today, you're going to find 6 or 7 hospitals and cities that are currently dealing with a ransomware attack right now. So, and that's just, again, the ones we know about. So, and then following up here, Abilene, they're finally coming to grips with reality. They're, city officials are coming out of their hole and admitting what we've all known for months now. And, new details have been released following the cyber attack on the City of Abilene. While the city is still working to replace all of its equipment, tech officials said there's no evidence as of May 28th that any confidential data was leaked on the dark web. Jeez, us Christmas, right? Like, where is this going to go, guys? Like, here we go. Who's advising these people, first off? Like, if they just watched our podcast, they would get better advice than what I'm seeing here. My God, like, from the beginning, this organization seems like they've been led by somebody who has no clue what they're doing when it comes to a cyber incident response or ransomware. I'm sorry to be so harsh on this one, but that's what I've thought since the beginning. And now I'm seeing this. We're 6 weeks into this thing, and this is where we're at. Like, we're replacing everything, and there's no evidence that confidential data has been leaked. Dude, Killing Ransomware Group has come out and said they have your stuff, and we're going to release it if you don't pay us.
Yep. 477 gigabytes.
Right.
1,200 employees.
Oh, like, we know it was stolen, but it hasn't been leaked yet. Well, it's going to get leaked if you don't pay them. And you're sitting there saying we're not going to pay them.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So if you're at 1,200 employees, let's just say 1,000 of them use computers.
So who do the residents of Abilene get to sue when all their stuff ends up on the dark web?
No, they're going to give them 1 year credit.
Yeah, because you really can't sue the government.
Right.
I mean, you can't sue the federal government. I'm sure you can sue your local government, but I don't know. Is the Columbus mayor still around? Like, did he get fired yet? Because I mean, he should have lost his job like week 2 of their cyber event, and I'm pretty sure he still has his job.
And the disturbing thing here, have they really said, "Hey, here's how they got in. Here's where we found them in our system. Here's where we eliminated them." It sounds like they're all in there, quote unquote, probably doing a lot of psyops, making them think they control everything. And so they're just going through and replacing everything. And how do we know that they're not going to infect the new stuff? It literally, a quote in the article said, I'm not quoting it like word for word, but I'm paraphrasing, basically said, by getting all this new equipment, we're creating a new cyber secure environment. Okay.
Yeah. So let me just lay it out there for you. Like, if you're somebody from the city of Abilene, an official, and you happen to be stumbled upon this podcast, right? Number one, the fact that you're replacing every computer tells us clearly you are not ready for this, and you had piss poor cyber defenses, because whoever's coming in cleaning this up is saying, we don't know if those systems are compromised. We don't know how deep it goes, and we are not going to support those systems because we don't trust any of it. So you got to start over from scratch. Let us rebuild this thing from the ground up. The other thing I'm going to say to you, if you're just purchasing from some guy or some vendor or some cybersecurity company that's just going to give you computers and lock it down with CrowdStrike, good luck, because that's probably what you're doing. And that's what I see companies doing left and right. They're like, oh, we get new computers, we invest in CrowdStrike and SentinelOne, and we're good. Well, that silver bullet that you're being sold is going to get you hacked again. So it takes way more than those two tools to get this right. All right, that's it for the show, guys. Let's go. We got Luke over here. He wants to know, and Randy, we can talk about this a little bit because we're WordPress guys. What are your thoughts on security plugins for websites like WordPress, where there are plugins such as WordFence? Do you think they offer any real protection? I'll let you go, and then I'll go.
Yeah. So first off, that's not a silver bullet. I think WordFence is a decent plugin, does some good things. What it tries to do also is fill a lot of holes that WordPress has in it that haven't been filled yet, that could be taken advantage by the bad guys. It also brings in multi-factor authentication and some things like that, but it can't be your only tool. So you need to be monitoring the websites to make sure that there's no signs of breach. You need to keep your WordPress updated. You need to make sure your plugins are all updated. That's really probably the number one attack vector. Plugins that aren't updated, and the actual WordPress not being updated. But keep those updated. If you have a plugin that's old, that hadn't been updated in years, it's time to look at replacing it with something that is getting updated.
Yeah, I agree with all that, Randy. Good job. Make my life easier. I would just add, it's better than nothing. And I would say get the paid version and configure the paid version properly. And that's a big kind of don't gloss over that part. I think like people install these plugins and think that's all I have to do. There are very granular settings in that tool, in that plugin, that you should go through and set up proper alerting. So the tool is something that is valuable to you, because a lot of times these things get thrown in there and people never look at them again. And there's all these things happening, right? And one day your site doesn't work, you go in there and WordFence has all these errors and things flagged, and before you know it, your code was compromised. So I think it's very useful tool if you use it the right way. And I highly think that it's better to use the paid version of that plugin, that particular plugin, than the free version. Although the free version's, better than nothing for like a firewall and limiting login attempts and stuff like that. So, all right. Anything else we want to cover? Is that it? You're welcome, Luke. Thanks for the support. Appreciate you chiming in on the show so often. That's it, guys. Good job today. Thank you so much. We explored a ton of stuff today, covering ransomware incidents, taking cities offline, healthcare systems under siege, evolving methods of these cyber criminals, attack methods that target not just data, but people as well. So if there's one thing to take away from today's episode, it's this: that the threat landscape is growing. It's more sophisticated than ever, and the response needed to match it is ever increasing. And I think we're falling behind. And it's important that you pay attention to this stuff and not forget about it with this whole AI, shiny object thing coming in front of all of our businesses over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're grateful that you joined us today. If you found this information, this conversation valuable, help us spread the word by liking, sharing, subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, or watch this live stream. And if you're watching the live stream, drop a comment wherever you can. Even when we're not live, we still monitor it, we still check it, and we may answer it right there in the comments, or we might bring it to the next show. So appreciate the engagement there. Stay alert, stay protected, and we'll see you on the next episode of Security Squawk. See you, everyone.